The 1950s are often remembered as a golden age of British motoring, a decade of ambition, innovation, and national pride on four wheels. But not every car that rolled out of Britain's factories deserved that reputation. Some were disasters from the first mile. Others fell apart slowly, humiliating their owners along the way. Today we're counting down 10 British cars that failed spectacularly, embarrassed their manufacturers, and left buyers furious. The engineering blunders alone will shock you. And the car sitting at number 1? It nearly destroyed everything. Subscribe to Britain Rewind and stay with us, because this countdown gets much darker before it ends. Number 10, Standard 8. Coming in at number 10 is the 1953 Standard 8, a car that looked affordable on paper but delivered misery in practice. Standard Motor Company positioned it as a sensible, economical family runabout for working-class Britain, and buyers lined up believing they were getting honest value for their money. But that wasn't even close to the whole story. Under the bonnet sat an 803cc four-cylinder engine producing just 26 horsepower, figures that made merging onto any road feel like a genuine prayer. The car had no exterior boot lid in early production, meaning families had to fold the rear seat forward just to access their luggage. Can you imagine explaining that to your wife on a Sunday drive? The heater was optional, the build quality was inconsistent, and early examples suffered chronic electrical faults. Owners felt cheated almost immediately. The Standard 8 bruised the brand's credibility before the decade even found its stride. And things on this list get considerably worse from here. Number 9, Hillman Minx Phase 6. At number 9 we have the Hillman Minx Phase 6, a car that managed to look outdated the very same year it launched. Roots Group had squeezed several updates into the Minx line throughout the late 40s and early 50s, but by Phase 6 the formula had grown exhausted. Buyers noticed immediately. The 1265cc side-valve engine felt ancient compared to what competitors were already offering, and the 3-speed gearbox made highway driving a frustrating, noisy experience that wore owners down on long journeys. But the worst part wasn't performance, it was the feeling of paying a reasonable sum for something that already felt like yesterday's car. Dealerships struggled to generate excitement. Owners frequently reported oil leaks, poorly fitted trim, and bodywork that began showing rust surprisingly early. Few owners saw this level of deterioration coming so quickly. Would you have paid hard-earned post-war savings for something that aged this badly? One manufacturer higher on this list made an even more embarrassing miscalculation. Number 8, Austin A30. Number 8 belongs to the Austin A30, a car that arrived with considerable fanfare and disappointed on almost every front that mattered. British Motor Corporation marketed it as a modern small car for a new era, and the public genuinely wanted to believe that promise. The 803cc A-Series engine was technically a new unit, but 28 horsepower in a car expected to serve real families was barely adequate even by 1952 standards. Handling was vague, the interior felt cramped to a degree that frustrated even shorter drivers, and the gear change was notoriously imprecise. What happened next made owners furious. Rust arrived faster than most expected, and early structural issues around the door frames became a common complaint within just a few years of ownership. The A30 sold in reasonable numbers purely because affordable alternatives were scarce, not because it earned loyalty. Many classic car fans overlook exactly how poorly this car served its buyers. The real disasters, though, are still ahead. Number 7, Jowett Jupiter. Sitting at number 7 is the Jowett Jupiter, a sports car that promised excitement and delivered a catalogue of mechanical anxiety instead. Jowett had genuine ambition here. The Jupiter featured a flat for 1486cc engine, an advanced alloy body, and a chassis engineered with real sporting intent. On paper it read like a British sports car worth celebrating. But that promise collapsed quickly in practice. The engine suffered persistent reliability problems, including crankshaft failures that became almost legendary among frustrated owners. The gearbox was fragile under spirited use, and the cooling system struggled in a way that made longer drives feel like gambling. What would you do if your brand new sports car required an engine rebuild within the first year? Jowett's financial situation deteriorated alongside the Jupiter's reputation, and the company collapsed entirely in 1954, leaving owners without part support or manufacturer backing. Few stories in 1950s British motoring end quite this abruptly. But one entry on this countdown suffered a collapse of an entirely different magnitude. Number 6, Bond Mini Car Mark C. Number 6 is the Bond Mini Car Mark C, and if you thought the previous entries were embarrassing, this three-wheeled contraption raises the stakes considerably. Sharp Brothers built the Bond Mini Car as an economy vehicle for post-war Britain, targeting buyers who needed cheap, basic transport above everything else. The single-cylinder VS 2-stroke engine displaced just 197 cc and produced power figures that made the standard 8 look athletic by comparison. There was no reverse gear. Owners literally had to lift the front of the vehicle and turn it by hand when parking became difficult. Can you imagine doing that outside a shop on a rainy Tuesday in Bradford? The bodywork was fiberglass of extremely questionable quality, the ride was genuinely punishing, and the handling in crosswinds made motorway driving something approaching terrifying. Owners who bought these cars often did so without fully understanding the compromises involved, and the embarrassment of daily ownership was severe. Stay with us because what's coming next is significantly worse. Number 5, Singer SM1500. At number 5 we have the Singer SM1500, a car that arrived at exactly the wrong moment with exactly the wrong problems. Singer positioned the SM1500 as a stylish, slightly upmarket saloon that would attract buyers who wanted more than plain utility. The 1497cc overhead camshaft engine was actually reasonably sophisticated for the period, and the styling carried genuine ambition. But none of that mattered when the execution fell apart so thoroughly. The engine was expensive to maintain and prone to failures that independent mechanics frequently struggled to diagnose correctly. Build quality was inconsistent across the production run, with panel gaps and trim fitment that varied dramatically from one example to the next. Dealers reported buyer complaints at a rate that embarrassed the company. What happened next changed the car's reputation forever. Singer's parent company, the Roots Group, effectively absorbed and marginalized the brand, and the SM1500 became a symbol of a manufacturer losing its identity. Most people have never heard this part of the story. The car at number 4 hits even harder. Number 4, Daimler Conquest Century. Daimler Conquest Century is a proof that premium badging cannot save a fundamentally flawed product from itself. Daimler promised buyers a refined, sporting saloon that would combine British luxury with genuine performance. The twin-carburetor version of the 2433cc six-cylinder engine produced around 100 horsepower, which was a genuinely respectable figure for a mid-50s British saloon. But the problems underneath that respectable surface were serious. The bodywork corroded at a rate that horrified owners who had paid premium prices expecting durability. The braking system was inadequate for a car capable of reaching nearly 100 miles per hour, and handling at speed exposed chassis limitations that made confident driving feel irresponsible. Can you imagine spending Daimler money and discovering the car was genuinely dangerous at the speeds it could reach? Owner complaints were significant, and the reputation damage within enthusiast circles was lasting. Paying for prestige and receiving embarrassment is a special kind of automotive betrayal. The vehicle at number 3 somehow managed to do even worse. Number 3, Vauxhall Victor F-Series. Vauxhall Victor F-Series is a special kind of disaster because it came from a manufacturer that genuinely should have known better. General Motors pushed its Luton factory to design a modern, American-inspired family saloon on a schedule so tight that production engineers were reportedly overwhelmed from the very beginning. The 1,508 cubic centimeters four-cylinder engine was actually adequate. That wasn't the problem. The problem was everything surrounding it. The wraparound windscreen seals leaked water directly into the cabin from almost day one. Doors and bonnets fitted so poorly that mud, rain, and road spray found their way inside constantly. The monocoque structure was so poorly engineered that rust arrived at a rate that genuinely shocked buyers who had paid for a brand new car. What happened next made owners furious. The Victor became one of the most notoriously rust-prone British cars ever documented. Can you imagine a new family car rotting before your eyes? The story behind number 2 hits even harder. Number 2, Standard Vanguard Phase 1. At number 2 sits the standard Vanguard Phase 1, a car built on extraordinary ambition and delivered with extraordinary disappointment. Standard Motor Company had bold dreams here. They called it a world car, designed for Britain and every export market simultaneously, and they launched it with genuine national pride. The 2,088 cubic centimeters 4-cylinder engine was derived so closely from the Ferguson tractor unit that farmers genuinely recognized its character immediately, and not in a flattering way. Performance was sluggish. Reaching 60 miles per hour took nearly 20 seconds, which made overtaking feel like a calculated risk every single time. The wet cylinder liners were a persistent problem, rusting through if the engine stood unused and causing pistons to seize without warning. Rust attacked the sills, floors, and bulkhead aggressively and early. Critics described the interior as depressingly American without any of the genuine American quality. Would you call something a world car when the world didn't particularly want it? And number 1 makes every entry before it look forgivable. Number 1, Barkley Sports SE 328. And at number 1, the car that humiliated everyone who touched it, is the Barkley Sports. Built by a caravan manufacturer who decided, with extraordinary confidence, to enter the sports car market, Barkley produced tiny fiberglass machines powered by motorcycle engines that had absolutely no business being called sports cars. The two-stroke engines ranged from 322cc to around 492cc, delivering performance that made every hill a genuine obstacle and every motorway entry a moment of sincere personal risk. The chain drive system was fragile in a way that defied belief, the fiberglass bodywork cracked under normal use, and the handling was so unpredictable that experienced drivers found it genuinely frightening at speeds that a modern bicycle could match. Owners reported mechanical failures within weeks of purchase. The company collapsed in 1960, abandoning every single owner simultaneously. No parts. No support. No dignity. Barkley didn't just build a bad car, they built a catastrophic, company-ending embarrassment that remains unmatched in 1950s British automotive history. And that wraps up 10 of the worst British cars the 1950s ever produced, from the underpowered Standard 8 all the way down to the jaw-dropping disaster that was the Barkley Sports. Every car on this list promised something and delivered failure, but nothing came close to Barkley's complete collapse and the owners it left behind. Which car surprised you most? Drop your answer in the comments below, we read every single one. And if you enjoyed this countdown of forgotten British automotive disasters, subscribe to Britain Rewind right now. More hidden history, more untold failures, and more shocking countdowns are coming very soon. And trust us, you don't want to miss them.